What's going on, Tamers? East here, and oh, what's that? Oh, I got a message. Oh, the new card reveals are out there. Let me see. Dang, Gagu plays for 6? Greymon suspends or protects? Galmon does what? Code Red, I think they rehired the EX5 guy. This is insane. BT23 is absolutely cracked. What are we talking about today? EX10? Why? That's crazy, brother. Looking over the Jesmon stuff the past couple days, the Sistermon cards, that's insane. The Hoodymon loop stuff, Jesus Christ. The power bump is insane in BT23. You'll probably have to make a video later this week about BT23. That's crazy to me. Where was I? Sorry, that's like all I can think about right now. Literally all I can think about. EX10 Sinister Order is finally released, and the real crime is that Beelzemon turns off pretty much this whole set. But BT23 aside for a moment, we did get a lot of really interesting results from this past week. We got a lot of store qualifiers happening for the World Championships later happening next year. We also got a couple of Evolution Cups, so it's a really good environment right now to see what decks are either doing really well and can they compete with some of the more established past decks from the game. There were a lot of eyes on this set up to its release when things like the Magneticdramon memory loop were discovered by some of the Chinese players a couple weeks beforehand. We also had really strong cards in the Magneticdramon, enabling crazy OTK plays from the Pyramidimon deck of the past, and the control power and memory efficiency of Lucemon, just to name a few. And with the game still young in its post-banlist environment, it really does feel like the Wild West out there. I think a lot of players, myself included, are really looking to as much information as they can find to kind of see what direction the game is headed. And so with that in mind, let's take a look at some event results, a couple of key takeaways, and a closer look at some of the decks that topped over the course of Sinister Order's inaugural week. Week 1 for a new set is generally a time of exploration, and EX10 really is no exception, with a lot of players exploring the new Legion of Doom of decks we have at our disposal. Well, I think before this set, a lot of folks had their eyes on the Magneticdramon deck because of the scary looping gameplay that some of the Chinese players discovered. What's really been attracting attention, pun intended, is Magneticdramon. Back in the deck's original run, Pyramidimon actually had some pretty good OTK potential, but was still lacking in a couple ways to pull it off quickly. And as a result, Close made a deal with the devil to give up her socks and shoes and became unchained with access to new cards like the Magneticdramon level 7, as well as some cool supporting cards from EX10. What's nice about the first week of this new set is that we're also having World Championship qualifier store events and Evolution Cups happening at the same time. Because of that, it's injected a level of sweat into the environment that has forced some of these new decks to actually prove themselves against the old guard, having to fight against the likes of Royal Knights, Galaxy Toolbox, and Omnimon, just to name a few. And some of these decks are actually up to the challenge, especially when you take a look at tools like the new Blackboard Greymon Ace, who can, with one stack, pretty much solo the entire Omnimon deck by itself. Other decks like Beelzemon, Magneticdramon, and my personal favorite Bagara Army are among those as well. And while not overly represented, there were some decks that got a little bit of shine from the new set in the likes of Dark Masters, as well as the new Gamamon deck that got some support with the new Regulusmon cards. Seeing a lot of the new EX10 decks represented here was actually great, but what really shocked me was the complete lack of Deusmon and the new Appmon archetype, as well as Lucemon. I even played against Lucemon at my locals this past week, and it's terrifying how the deck moves now. With the new Cupimon Egg, the new level 3 Lucemon, and the new option card Paradise Lost, it's terrifying to fight against that deck. But I'm sure as players continue to practice, optimize, and refine their lists, it'll pop up soon. But if you're like me waiting on those results with bated breath, don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more Digimon card game content shuffled directly into your YouTube feed. The first deck we're going to be taking a close look at is going to be Magneticdramon, and the theme of this deck really is one man's trash is another man's treasure. Early game, you're going to be dumping a bunch of your rocks and minerals into the trash, and then later, they're going to be reabsorbed into one big stack in order to make him super strong and potentially clear the game up. You can actually use some of the cards in the deck in order to actually build your stack up as well, things like level 4 Landramon promo card, as well as pretty much all of the closed tamers, with the exception, I think, of the newest one. Oh, and I almost forgot, you've also got the EX10 new Sunadizamon, who's able to put 2 rocks and minerals from the trash under one of your Digimon on board. And then you can utilize those inheritance cards in order to gain other effects, like the EX10 Landramon, who lets you pop one off, gain 3000, reboot, and Blonker. You've also got the Proganomons, who have Fragment, which is really useful as a way to keep him around when he would be deleted on the board otherwise, as well as the level 7 boss of the deck Magneticdramon, who can delete opponent's Digimon and trash the security. And to really emphasize and drive home that push-pull magnetic ability of his, he's able to actually reabsorb up to 3 sources and become unsuspended as a result. That last one being once per turn, by the way. You can't keep doing that, that'd be crazy. And I hear you, I know what you're thinking out there. You're like, East, that's really cool, but he's a level 7, it's so hard to get there. No, not anymore. So here's the deal. You've got your new EX10 Proganomon, who can evolve off of a Sunadizamon, assuming you have a close on the board and a Landramon in the trash. You pop the Landramon underneath the Magneticdramon, and he can evolve into Perganomon directly for 3 cost. And then to make matters even crazier, you can go directly from a Perganomon level 5 into a Magneticdramon level 7 if you have a close on the board, but it's going to cost 6. And while that might seem a little bit heavy, keep in mind you've got option cards like Gravel Hearts as a way to reduce your Digivolve cost by 3, or you'll just the basic defense training staples to make it cost -2. And what really pushes this deck over the top, at least in my opinion, is the fact that whenever you do slough off and get rid of those source cards, you gain effects off of pretty much each one that you get rid of. So everything from de-Digivolve to delete a cost 4 lower Digimon, and even gain 1 memory in the case of the Tumblemon Digi-Egg. If you're out there probably wondering, well, that's awesome with all this new offense, but does the deck have any defensive potential? Well, we've got you covered there as well. Take a look at the new EX10 level 2 Tumblemon Digi-Egg, who can get rid of 3 of his own sources and basically end an attack. You've also got the new EX10 Pyramidimon level 6, who can reduce Digimon's play cost by getting rid of his sources. Now, that's kind of a play on some of his effects that lets you delete Digimon who are 4 cost or less in inheritance, on some of the inheritance effects. In this way, you can actually use this effect to make Digimon's play cost lower and then delete them with the cost 4 or lower deletion effect. Not to mention, he also has Fragment as a way to save himself whenever he would be deleted on the board. So if you're looking for a deck that's going to pull in the wins and repel all the haters, I don't know if it's actually going to repel all the haters, they might just still be hating, but you get the idea. Definitely take a look at Magneticdramon. I think outside of just the Omnimon archetype, Greymon cards have actually had a lot of interest recently thanks to some of the new introductions of cards like the BT22 Yugioh Kamishiro, as well as Rise Greymon cards, alongside both of the BT22 and Promo Gaiomon cards. And with the release of the EX10 Black Core Greymon Ace, this deck has seen entirely new heights. He really is the biggest bully on the playground, becoming 15k invincible to opponents' Digimon's effects while he's on the board, while they have a 13k or higher DP Digimon on the board. Not to mention the fact that he has Raid, Blocker, and Reboot as a way to punch and also block the following turn. What's really nice is that these decks actually retain the red and black focus for a lot of their cards, which means you can actually build the deck either offensively, or as the deck we'll look at today, more defensively. If you've watched some of our past meta reports, you've probably seen me talk about the combo between the starter deck Agumon, the Agumon X Antibody, and the Black Greymon starter deck card, where all 3 of them gain +1 memory in some sort of fashion by either blocking or redirecting attacks. When you combine all these effects, you can actually either steal a turn away from an opponent or start them with 0 on their turn if they have a tamer that sets their memory to 3 at the start. This puts them under immense pressure, allowing them to pretty much only make 1 move per turn while you can continue to build an advantage. More control-oriented versions of the deck are going to skew toward the black cards, especially when you take a look at things like the 4 of the defensive training staple card, alongside things like Breakthrough of Courage and Trident Arm. And while Gaiomon still does play a part in this deck, using a couple copies of the BT22 Gaiomon, this list focuses heavily on the Black Core Greymon and ways to enable him against your opponent. There's new tools like the Metal Greymon, who you can either just hard slam or evolve into and force an opponent's Digimon to make an attack, thereby letting you get into the Black Core Greymon Ace for free. Not to mention the fact that he has the inheritance effect. Whenever you redirect an attack target, you can just trash an opponent's security. So when you combine this with the aforementioned Agumon and Greymon memory gains and the trashing, you can see how quickly this can steamroll your opponents. You're probably thinking, well, as long as my opponent doesn't have a 13k or higher DP Digimon on this side of the board, Black Core Greymon actually doesn't really have any protection. Well, there's some ways you can get around this. Some of those include cards like the Yugioh Kamishiro Tamer as a way to redirect an attack target and make him invincible even if they're smaller than 13k. You've also got things like the Greymon X Antibodies as a way to either soft off 2 sources or get rid of an X Antibody card in inheritance in order to keep him on the board. And there's some really clever things you can do by actually buffing your opponent's Digimon. Let's imagine they have an 11k on the board. You can play down the new level 4 Greymon card and buff 1 Digimon on the board, either yours or your opponent's, by 3,000. If you buff your opponent's, the Black Core Greymon sees this and becomes even bigger, 15k, and invincible to effects. Another effect you might be worried about is actually de-Digivolve, and because a lot of the lower level 4s and level 5s now have access to like de-Digivolve 1, this makes your Black Core Greymon Ace also vulnerable. But thanks to the level 5 Metal Greymon X Antibody, you can prevent these de-Digivolves as well as DP minuses in order to keep him on the board for longer. Not to mention that he also has an inheritance effect that lets you unsuspend and trash your opponent's security. Something that I missed actually when I was going over this deck initially is that there's actually 4 cards over turn, 2 of those being Digi-Egg cards and 2 of those being cards in the main deck. I took some educated guesses here as what those cards might be, and I think that the player was just trying to show off what their back of their sleeves looked like. And so in this case, I just added in 2 more copies of Cool Boy, considering the deck does have a considerable X Antibody focus, as well as 2 more copies of some Koromon card, where all 3 of the Agumon cards are able to evolve off of a Koromon, that's either red or black. This was like the best educated guess I could come up with. Although honestly, I think if you just take the 4 new Koromon from EX10 and just use him, that's also just acceptable. If you've got any ideas of what you think these cards might actually be, or you've got some ideas for some really cool text, put them in the comments below. I'll be reading there as well. Each week I allow my champion level and higher YouTube members to vote on decks they want to see featured in these meta report videos. And this week they voted to see, oh, it was a tie. Myotismon and Beelzemon, eh? That's a toughie. How do we resolve this? Alright, here's what I'll do. I think it's worth having an actual conversation about Myotismon. So, folks who voted for Myotismon, hold on, I will get to you. I'll make an entirely separate video about Myotismon, and we'll talk about the loop version, some regular versions, we'll show off a list, and that'll say you guys. But for this video, let's take a look at Beelzemon. If only there was one more person to cast that tie-breaking vote. That could be you out there. If you'd like to vote on decks that you want to see featured in these meta report videos, as well as some other cool perks and bonuses like early access to my content, consider becoming a YouTube member as well. I want to give a big shout out to all the folks who do support the channel. With that, let's take a look at Beelzemon for now. Depending on when you started playing the Digimon card game, Beelzemon is either 1, a deck you know nothing about, or 2, a deck that strikes fear into your heart because of how crazy it was early in the game's lifespan. And the new EX10 cards are here to right the wrongs and put the fear of God into everybody when they fight against this deck. This list from Brunei's finest, Kai, inspired by Yugioh and my content creator brother in arms, Digidread. Side note, if you're a fan of the puppets archetype at all, he did an incredible amount of work with this deck, and I wholeheartedly recommend you check out his channel. For the uninitiated, the basic game plan of Beelzemon decks are that you want to mill your own deck into the trash directly. You don't draw it, you just go from deck to trash. While you do that, you're going to be gaining lots of effects from the cards that are milled to the trash. Everything from memory +1 off of cards like the promo Wizardmon and the Deathslinger option card, to deleting level 4 thanks to the new EX10 level 3 Impmon, as well as the ability to give Sec-1 whenever you're trashed either from the deck or, strangely enough, security thanks to the new EX10 Wizardmon. And you've got lots of effects that can actually mill these cards into the trash. Everything from the Yugioh who can trash 2 when attacking. You've got the EX10 Impmon, who at the start of your main phase, if he's on the board, you can just mill 2 cards to the trash. You've got the Ballmon Evo effects, they both mill 2. Also, for the newer version from EX10, if you've got 5 or more cards in trash, he gets blocker and reboot for a turn. Not bad. The Wizardmon X also mills 2 on attack, and pretty much every regular version of Beelzemon does milling in some form or fashion. And you're probably thinking, well, East, what if I mill cards that I need into the trash? Well, don't worry, we got you covered here. There's a really useful option card called Rivals' Barrage, which lets you, when milled, be placed directly into the battle area, and with the delay effect, you can just pull back any Digimon you need from the trash during the turn. Hit a mill effect that you really like and you want to use again? Well, the starter deck Mako Tamer lets you restack cards from your trash back on top of your deck in order to get those mill effects to reuse them, all while giving you a little bit of quick memory at the same time. And then finally, once you've built up enough cards in trash, you've got tons of different ways to play out Beelzemon to close the game out. Once you built up 20 cards in trash, you've got access to the starter deck Impmon, who lets you warp into a Beelzemon directly for 3 cost. Both of the Ballmon level 5s, when they're deleted, if you have 10 or more cards in trash, just lets you play a Beelzemon from the trash. And if that wasn't enough, you've also got the BT23 Ahid Mako, who are literally just handing you the gun to do crime by letting you evolve into a Beelzemon for 4 costs if you've got 20 more cards in trash as well. Not to mention the new EX10 Beelzemon Ace with the ability to give D-Digivolve, stack cards back on the top of the deck, and delete a Digimon based on how many cards are in your trash. This can put your opponent in a really weird situation where if you have a level 5 Ballmon on the board, you've got 10 or more cards in trash, if they take out the Ballmon, then you get a Beelzemon. If they don't take out a Ballmon and they just attack and try to ignore him, you could get a Beelzemon. And if they don't do anything, you'll next turn just evolve into a Beelzemon. He is inevitable. So if you're a fan of playing the game on knife's edge, taking out your opponent's security faster than you can mill out your own deck, definitely give Beelzemon a shot. With that, we're going to bring our week 1 meta report for the EX10 Sinister Order set to a close. So yeah, again, folks who voted for Myotismon, give me a little bit of time. I will have that video for you in the near future. If you're looking for something else to watch, I've got the EX10 Sinister Order rules video up, which I think explores some really interesting situations using some of the new cards from this set. If you're looking for some more Sinister Order action. If you'll excuse me now, I've got to go continue losing my mind from these BT23 reveals. I'm going to get out of here. Before you get out of here, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Feel like Sonic underwater. Do 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 do.